Snow fell gently, like tiny diamonds tumbling from heaven, covering the city in a soft, glistening blanket. The streets of downtown were alive with the joy of Christmas Eve. Twinkling lights framed every window, wreaths hung proudly on doors, and the air was filled with the scent of roasted chestnuts, pine, and distant laughter. Inside the grandest toy store in town, warmth and wonder danced together. Children darted between aisles of dolls and trains, their excited giggles echoing off the walls like music. Daniel Hayes stood in the middle of it all, his tall frame slightly hunched as he tried to keep track of the tiny ball of energy clinging to his hand. His daughter, Lily, was 6 years old, a whirlwind of curls, curiosity, and innocence. She had spent nearly an hour deciding between a plush unicorn and a teddy bear, before finally settling on the bear, which now sat proudly in a little paper bag she refused to let go of. "Are you sure you don't want the unicorn too, sweetheart?" Daniel asked, smiling down at her. Lily shook her head with firm conviction. "No, Daddy, Teddy looks like he needs a home. The unicorns already have lots of friends." Daniel chuckled softly at her reasoning. "You've got a good heart, Lily." As they stepped out of the store, the sharp winter air nipped at their cheeks. Lily's small mittened hand clutched his tightly as they walked through the bustling streets. Carols played from nearby speakers, mingling with the jingling of bells from Salvation Army volunteers. It was a picture-perfect Christmas Eve, one that should have been filled with nothing but cheer. Yet something in Daniel's chest felt heavy. The season always reminded him of what he'd lost, his wife, Emily, taken by illness 3 years ago. He'd thrown himself into work since then, becoming the kind of father who was always present but rarely there. This Christmas was his attempt to change that. No business calls, no meetings, just time with Lily. She was his whole world. Her laughter, her endless questions, her way of finding beauty in the smallest things, she reminded him what mattered. They walked past a bakery, where warm light spilled onto the street, and Lily pressed her nose against the frosted glass to watch gingerbread men being decorated inside. "They look so happy," she said softly. "Cookies," Daniel teased. "No, Daddy, the people." Her words made him pause. He looked through the glass, families laughing together, couples holding hands, children bouncing with excitement. It was a simple scene, but it pierced something deep inside him. They continued walking, hand in hand, snow crunching beneath their boots. Then, just as they turned the corner near the park, Lily stopped abruptly. Her mitten slipped from Daniel's grasp. "Daddy," she whispered. He followed her gaze. There, sitting beneath a flickering street lamp, was a woman. Her clothes were old, her shoes torn at the seams. A thin blanket clung to her shoulders, dusted with snow. Her hair was tangled, her skin pale and weathered by the cold. She sat on the curb beside a small cardboard sign that read, "Just need a warm place tonight." The people walking by pretended not to see her. Some glanced for half a second, then turned away. The holiday joy that filled the streets seemed to stop at her feet, leaving her trapped in a silent, lonely world. Lily's eyes filled with something Daniel recognized, compassion, pure and instinctive. "Daddy, why is she sitting there? Isn't she cold?" Daniel's voice caught in his throat. "Yes, sweetheart, she's cold. Then why doesn't she go home?" He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Sometimes people don't have homes, Lily. Life can be hard, and they have to live outside until things get better." She frowned, the concept too big for her tender heart to grasp. "But it's Christmas," she said softly, as if that one word alone should fix everything. "Everyone should have a home on Christmas." Her tiny voice trembled, and Daniel felt something stir inside him, guilt, maybe, or the ache of helplessness. He had passed by people like this woman before, too many times. He'd thrown a few bills in a cup, murmured, "Merry Christmas," and kept walking. But seeing her now, through Lily's eyes, made the moment feel different. The woman shifted slightly, pulling her blanket tighter, her face illuminated by the golden glow of a nearby store window. Daniel could see the faint lines around her eyes, the exhaustion carved into her features. There was dignity there still, the quiet, fragile kind that life hadn't yet managed to break completely. Lily tugged on his sleeve, her voice trembling with the simple, devastating sincerity of a child. "Daddy, can we take her home?" The question hit him harder than he expected. He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. The wind picked up, carrying the faint sound of carolers singing, "O Holy Night," from somewhere down the street. The lyrics, a thrill of hope, "The weary world rejoices," wrapped around the moment like a whisper from above. He looked down at Lily. Her eyes were shining with unshed tears, her lips trembling as she looked back at the woman. There was no pity in her gaze, only empathy, the kind that comes from a heart untouched by cynicism or fear. Daniel knelt beside her, his breath clouding the air. "Sweetheart," he said quietly, "we can't just take people home without asking them. But maybe we can help her." Lily nodded, though her little face still carried worry. "Can we at least ask if she's okay?" Before he could respond, Lily let go of his hand and walked toward the woman, her boots crunching in the snow. Daniel followed quickly, a mix of pride and apprehension swirling inside him. The woman looked up as they approached, startled, as if no one had dared to come close in days. Her eyes, a soft gray blue, flickered with confusion and wariness. "Hi," Lily said gently, holding out her teddy bear. "You look cold." "This is Teddy. He keeps me warm. You can borrow him." The woman blinked, stunned. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Then her lips curved into a fragile, trembling smile. "Thank you, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice rough from the cold. "That's very kind of you." Daniel crouched down beside them, his own heart pounding. "Ma'am," he said softly, "is there anywhere you can go tonight?" "A shelter, maybe." She shook her head slowly. "All full. Been walking all day. Just need somewhere warm until morning." The snow began to fall harder, flakes settling on her hair. Daniel felt his throat tighten. He glanced at Lily, who was watching him expectantly, her little face glowing with hope. That look, innocent, trusting, made his decision for him. He took a deep breath. "Then come with us," he said, his voice steady but gentle. "We have a spare room, a warm fire, and dinner waiting. Please, let us help." The woman stared at him, disbelief and gratitude colliding in her eyes. "You don't even know me." Daniel smiled faintly. "Maybe not, but I know it's Christmas. And no one should be alone tonight." Lily clapped her hands in delight. "Yay, you can have cookies with us." For the first time in what must have been years, the woman laughed, a small, broken sound that was more beautiful than any carol that night. The house was wrapped in a gentle glow, the kind that only Christmas lights could create, soft, golden, and full of quiet warmth. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, stirring the snow that had piled along the porch. Inside, everything smelled of cinnamon, pine needles, and freshly baked cookies. The fireplace crackled lazily, its flickering light dancing across the walls, and the soft notes of an old Christmas carol floated from the radio. Grace sat on the edge of the couch, a wool blanket draped over her shoulders. Her fingers, red and raw from weeks in the cold, now cradled a mug of hot cocoa. The steam fogged her glasses slightly, and for a long time, she just stared at it, as if trying to remember the last time her hands had held something warm. Across the room, Lily was crouched near the fireplace, her tiny hands busy arranging cookies on a plate. She wore her pink pajamas with white snowflakes and a Santa hat that kept slipping over one eye. "These are for you," she said proudly, looking up at Grace. "You have to eat too, because that's how you make a Christmas wish." Grace smiled weakly. "Two? Huh, what happens if I eat 3? Then it comes true faster," Lily said matter-of-factly, her eyes twinkling. Daniel chuckled from the kitchen doorway, leaning against the frame with his arms crossed. He was watching them, his daughter's unfiltered kindness, the stranger's hesitant smile, and he felt a strange mix of emotions he hadn't felt in years. It had been so long since this house had felt alive. He walked in with another blanket and gently set it beside Grace. "You can stay here as long as you need," he said softly. "We've got plenty of room." Grace looked up at him, her eyes glistening. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "You don't even know me." "I didn't plan to," Daniel admitted, sitting across from her. "But sometimes, the right thing isn't planned. Sometimes it just finds you." Her lips trembled. "I used to love Christmas," she said quietly, looking into the fire. "My husband and I would decorate the tree together every year. He died 3 winters ago. Then came the bills, then the job loss, then," her voice cracked. "The house went next. I thought I'd just sleep outside for one night. Then one night became months." Lily's small hand reached across the coffee table and touched hers. "You don't have to be sad tonight," she said softly. "You can be happy with us." Grace swallowed hard, her throat tightening. No one had spoken to her like that in years, with simple, pure sincerity. She felt a tear slide down her cheek before she could stop it. She tried to hide it by turning away, but Daniel noticed. "Lily," he said gently, "how about you go check if Santa's cookies are ready in the kitchen?" Lily giggled and darted off, her footsteps pattering down the hall. Daniel looked back at Grace. "You don't have to explain anything. You're safe here. Grace nodded slowly, staring into the fire again. The warmth of it touched her face, and she felt something deep inside begin to thaw, something she hadn't even realized had frozen over. I thought people stopped caring, she murmured. You start to feel invisible after a while. Like no one even sees you walking past. Daniel's expression softened. I used to be one of those people, he admitted. Too busy, too focused on my own world. I'd see someone on the street and tell myself I couldn't do anything. But tonight, my daughter reminded me that I could. Grace looked at him for a long moment, her lips trembling. She's a special little girl. She is, Daniel said, glancing toward the kitchen where Lily's humming drifted through the air. Her mother was the same way. Always saw the best in everyone. I lost her a few years ago. Since then, Christmas hasn't really meant much to me, until tonight. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. The fire popped softly, filling the silence with its comforting rhythm. Lily returned, carrying a plate of cookies shaped like stars and trees. She set them on the coffee table and plopped down beside Grace. Daddy, can we tell stories now? She asked, her eyes bright. Daniel smiled. Of course we can. Lily looked at Grace expectantly. You go first. Tell us a Christmas story. Grace blinked, taken aback. Oh, I don't think I have one. Yes, you do, Lily insisted, curling up beside her. Everyone has one. Grace hesitated, then smiled faintly. Well, once upon a time, there was a little girl who loved the stars. Every night she'd look out her window and make a wish on the brightest one. She always wished for the same thing, to help people who were sad or lonely. But as she grew up, she forgot about the stars. She forgot about wishing. What happened next? Lily whispered, eyes wide. One Christmas, Grace continued, her voice shaking a little, someone reminded her what it felt like to be seen again. To be loved, to be warm, and maybe, that was the wish finally coming true. Lily beamed. I like that story. You're the girl, aren't you? Grace laughed softly, wiping her eyes. Maybe I am. Daniel felt a lump form in his throat. The moment was so tender, so human, that he almost didn't want to breathe for fear of breaking it. They stayed like that for hours, talking, laughing, eating cookies that crumbled too easily. Grace told them about her favorite books, about how she used to bake pies every Christmas Eve, and about the tiny music box she once owned that played Silent Night. Lily promised to find her another one someday. Later, when Lily began to yawn and her eyes grew heavy, Daniel carried her upstairs to bed. She clung to his neck sleepily and whispered, Daddy, I'm glad we found her. So am I, sweetheart, he said softly, kissing her forehead. When he came back downstairs, Grace was still sitting by the fire, staring at the flames. Her face looked softer now, almost peaceful. She's an angel, Grace murmured without looking up. You know that, don't you? Daniel smiled, taking a seat beside her. Yeah, she reminds me that there's still good in the world. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the faint whistle of wind against the windows. Then Grace said quietly, I don't know how to thank you. Just promise me one thing, Daniel replied. When you're back on your feet, when life gets better, and it will, do for someone else what Lily did for you tonight. Grace nodded, tears spilling freely now. I will, I promise. The clock struck midnight. Outside, the world was wrapped in snow and silence, the kind that made everything feel possible again. From the fireplace mantel, the lights reflected softly off a framed photo of Emily, Daniel's late wife, smiling with that same kindness Lily had inherited. For the first time in years, Daniel didn't feel the usual ache when he looked at it. He felt peace. Grace finished her cocoa and leaned back into the couch, exhaustion and warmth mingling together. Merry Christmas, Daniel, she whispered. He smiled. Merry Christmas, Grace. And as the night grew quiet, Daniel realized something profound. This house, once filled with emptiness, now carried laughter again. Love had returned not through grand gestures or gifts, but through a simple question from a child with a heart big enough to change everything.